Welcome to the New Life Ministries podcast. If the Book of Proverbs helps us to navigate living well, what does it have to say on the subject of sexual desire? Quite a lot, actually. There are 3 large speeches in the opening chapters. Today we look at the first, where in a man-to-man talk, the father advises his son on how to be in control of his sexual activity. Let's join our service as we begin today's message.
Well, good morning. Today we're going to look at Proverbs chapter 5, page 956, if you have a New Living Translation Giant Print Bible. And those of you online or watching the recording, good morning, welcome. Back in chapter 2 of Proverbs, there's these little lines that say, "Wisdom will save you from the immoral woman, from the seductive words of the promiscuous woman. She's abandoned her husband and ignores the covenant she made before God. Entering her house leads to death. It is the road to the grave. The man who visits her is doomed. He will never reach the path of life." Today, we're going to talk about sex and marriage, which might seem like a bit of an unusual topic for a single man to preach on, right? So, have you ever heard of the book Clowning in Rome? To be a clown? Clowning in Rome. It's written by Henry Nouwen. The subtitle of the book is Reflections on Solitude, Celibacy, Prayer, and Contemplation. In a circus, after the intense acts, after the lion tamer who's put his head in the mouth of the lion, after the high trapeze artists who've been swinging back and forth without a net, the clowns come in. The clowns help you to calm down. The clowns help you to relax and to laugh and to reset a little bit first. Because without the clowns, the intense acts, one after another, would become emotionally exhausting. Marriage or intimate relationships can get really intense. And when your frustrations, there's a time when the frustrations with your partner can become the single largest topic in your mind. And if that conflict never resolves or finds peace, it becomes emotionally exhausting. And so single people come along and remind you that not all of your life is found in your relationship with your spouse. Single people who live lives without pining for a spouse, who live successfully, who successfully walk with God, remind you there's more to life than just marriage. There's more to life than just sexual relationships. And it helps you to just gain some perspective and calm down a little bit. And sometimes those of us who are single offer some perspectives that are helpful. So today we're going to look at Proverbs and talk about sex and marriage. So let me offer a prayer and we'll tackle chapter 5. Well, that image worked out well. Father, when Proverbs hit close to home, they become real personal and we feel very, very vulnerable. On a subject like sexuality, where our history is going to come to our mind, our thoughts, what we're attracted to, what we shouldn't be attracted to but are attracted to, all of these thoughts will quickly jump into our head and we will feel vulnerable. Would you help us to feel safe? Would you help us to listen and to hear what your word is trying to teach us? That on this subject, we would continue that journey of bringing it to you in our discipleship. So please help us in this time. Yeah, amen. With me? It's all good? All right, Proverbs 5. My son, pay attention to my wisdom. Listen carefully to my wise counsel. Then you will show discernment, and your lips will express what you've learned. For the lips of an immoral woman are as sweet as honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. But in the end, she is as bitter as poison, as dangerous as the double-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps lead straight to the grave. She cares nothing about the path to life. She staggers down a crooked trail and doesn't realize it. So now, my son, listen to me. Never stray from what I'm about to say. Stay away from her. Don't go near the door of her house. If you do, you will lose your honor and will lose to merciless people all you have achieved. Strangers will consume your wealth, and someone else will enjoy the fruit of your labor. In the end, you will groan with anguish when disease consumes your body. You will say, "How I hated discipline. If only I had not ignored all the warnings. Oh, why didn't I listen to my teachers? Why didn't I pay attention to my instructors? I have come to the brink of ruin, and now I must face public disgrace." Drink water from your own well. Share your love with your wife only. Why spill the water of your springs in the street, having sex with just anyone? You should reserve it for yourselves. Never share it with strangers. Let your wife be a fountain of blessing to you. Rejoice in the wife of your youth. She is a loving deer, a graceful doe. Let her breasts satisfy you always. May you always be captivated by her love. Why be captivated, my son, by an immoral woman, or fondle the breasts of a promiscuous woman? For the Lord sees clearly what a man does, examining every path he takes. An evil man is held captive by his own sins. They are ropes that catch and hold him. He will die for lack of self-control. He will be lost because of his great foolishness. So in the opening 9 chapters of Proverbs, there are 4 warnings about protecting your sexuality and applying wisdom to your sexual desire. This is one of them. The next 2 chapters each have more poems. Why 4? Because this topic is so important. The sex drive is so strong, it causes many people to stumble. So a couple of notes before we get into it. Proverbs is very oriented to men. It is a man-to-man warning, which a book that is oriented to women is Song of Solomon, which is the next book in the Bible, which means for you woman folk, you have to do a step in translating this material for yourself. Like, what does the voice of the attractive but corrupt man sound like? How does that man catch your attention? What draws your interest? How do you respond? You have to do that translation work for yourself. Proverbs is also written to the male who wants to follow the Lord, someone who's part of God's community on earth, so someone part of the church, someone who's saved. It's focused on warning the faithful disciple about the strength of their sex drive, which means don't think that just because you walk with Jesus, that your sex drive is automatically in line with the ways of Jesus. It also has to diligently be brought in step with the Lord. I think that's actually important to highlight. Sometimes we think if I walk with Jesus, this issue will get worked out. And like every other issue, this takes intentional work. We also want to go beyond a simple don't have sex outside of marriage conversation. Because learning to follow Jesus and to be faithful to Jesus with your sexuality is a subject that awaits you whether you are married or not. And that idea of, well, when I get married, this subject, I don't have to learn anything more in the subject is not true. You still have to learn faithfulness. You still have to learn these lessons. So with that, let's get into the text. This is going to be fun. Verses 1-3, my son, pay attention to my wisdom. Listen carefully to wise counsel. Then you will show discernment, and your lips will express what they've learned. For the lips of an immoral woman are as sweet as honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. It's saying that way to be in control of your sex drive is wisdom. It's like this is the tool that you need. So to say, I can't get in control of this, or it's not my fault, I can't stop myself. Well, Scripture is saying wisdom is how you get in control of yourself. Wisdom is how you stop yourself. Learn wisdom, and you will show discernment or discretion, which means you will be able to think clearly and decide what you're going to do. You can make a decision and follow through. Because when we start to get aroused, our thinking becomes all thumbs, right? That's a quote from M.C. Beaton. When you get aroused, you just can't think straight. The person you're relating to, you say stupid things, you do stupid things. Your mind kind of goes nutty. And this is saying wisdom will give you the ability to think clearly before you go too far down the road and make a mistake. And there's a great double entendre in verse 2. Your lips will express what you've learned, which one way means learn wisdom, and you will be able to speak your decision. I am not going to pursue this person. I'm not going to go down this path. But the other line is learn wisdom, and you won't be kissing who you shouldn't be kissing. That your lips will learn what wisdom teaches, which is just this beautiful little line. Because because the passage goes on, without wisdom, you don't stand a chance. That woman's lips are buttery sweet. Your sex drive is so strong. If you don't apply wisdom, you don't stand a chance. Because you know the temptation, the desire to be enchanted, to be drawn into pleasure by pleasure itself, the pull to abandon yourself to the person, to be accepted and affirmed and celebrated and enjoyed. It is overpowering. So, while this passage is very much written to man about, it's advice for men, I just want to talk briefly about this woman in the passage. So in our translation, it's the immoral woman. But in the original language, it's the strange woman. She's strange. So she's introduced in chapter 2, and she shows up here in a couple more chapters. She's strange because she was married, and she might still be. She was part of God's people and is still part of the community of God's people. But she's left her marriage, and she's walked away from God. She's left the normal moral behaviors of the community, and she behaves outside the boundaries of the law. And it's like that's strange. And the idea is not that we condemn her. The idea is that you examine the direction of her life, and you then can consider whether this is someone that it's wise to be attracted to. So it's not, condemn and judge. It's, what is the direction of her life? Is this someone that will be dangerous, or this is a wise attraction? Because if you get involved with the strange woman, you may have to face a jealous husband, and more about that in a moment. And getting involved with her will push you outside of the normal community, and that's going to cost you. More about that in a minute. And most important, she will lead you down the same path that she is on, which is away from the Lord. So if you want to be faithfully walking with God, this person who has walked away from the Lord will use your sexuality to pull you away from the Lord. And that's what's most significant. And if your sex drive is leading you away from God, Jesus is not going to be supportive of what you're doing, because that's going against wisdom. And the reason is God has a claim on your body. God has a claim on how you speak, on where you go, on what you look at, because you are his people. So 1 Corinthians 6 spends half of the chapter on this subject, but 2 verses say, "Don't you realize your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, who lives in you and was given to you by God? You do not belong to yourself, for God bought you with a very high price, that is the death of Jesus. So you must honor God with your body." So we want to move away from the idea that worshiping God is something that your mind does, something that you speak and you think about, but your body has nothing to do with worship. That your body is somehow too dirty for God, or it's broken, or it's unworthy, and therefore how you treat your body has nothing to do with the Lord. That is not true. Your body is how you live out your discipleship. It's how you live out your devotion to the Lord. In Romans 6 it says, Now you are free from your slavery to sin, and you have become slaves to righteous living. Now you must give yourself to be slaves to righteous living so that you will become holy. So you're either a slave to sin or a slave to righteousness, but you're bound to be loyal to one of those masters. So your body belongs to the Lord, and he has a stake, a claim on what you do with it. So your sexual behavior is not dictated by what you see around you and what everybody else is doing. It's not, guided by what you read in a book or what you watch on a screen. It's not driven by what you want right now. What you do with your body and your sexual behavior gets defined by the Lord. He says what is okay to do with your body. And as an aside, some book that someday maybe I will write, sexuality is somehow connected to spirituality. I have not figured out the connection yet. It's just there. You look at ancient artifacts of little gods and statues, and they have exaggerated sexual organs. There are some ancient artifacts that are only sexual organs. Ancient religions had temple prostitutes where that was part of how you went to worship that particular god. And I can tell you that when you control your sexuality and you keep it within proper boundaries, it strengthens your spirituality. It strengthens your connection with God. I don't know why. I can just tell you this happens. So the middle part of today's passage highlights the cost of having a relationship with this strange woman. And in recent news, explaining the cost of inappropriate sexual behavior seems like something unnecessary to say. Because consider the cost of inappropriate sexual behavior on Puff Daddy Sean Combs or on Jeffrey Epstein and those connected to him. He died in 2019, and people connected to him are still in the news about this issue. Consider the 5 hockey players in the Hockey Canada trial. And of course, the 2 people caught having an affair at the Coldplay concert. That one caught my attention because when the camera goes on the couple, if they had done nothing, nothing would have happened. No one would have said anything. The camera would have moved on. But the camera hits them. They're on the Jumbotron. She turns away in shame. He dives to the floor and hides. I thought, oh, it's Adam and Eve all over again. And I thought, God can expose anything. Like, what are the odds? You go to a concert. There's a massive crowd. The lights are off. You're way in a back dark corner. And then the person operating the kiss cam happens to find you during a song while you're hugging each other. And it all gets exposed. God can expose anything. So in our passage, the man warns the other man, if you pursue sexual immoral behavior, on top of the fact that she's going to lead you away from the Lord, it says in verse 9, you will lose your honor, you will lose your strength or your vitality, your power. You will lose it to merciless people who will consume all you've achieved. Because if you've been caught doing something sexually inappropriate, no one cares what it financially costs you. Strangers will consume your wealth. It says in verse 11, you will groan in anguish. Verse 12, you will call out, why did I ignore the warnings? You just have deep regret in your behavior, and you will face public disgrace. And some of this gets elaborated on in the next 2 chapters. But if that woman was married, that husband's coming after you for revenge or for money. And she herself will be glad to use your money because she's not thinking about your long-term well-being. And the community will look down on you, and that might cost you business deals, it might cost you family connections or other helpful connections. So the phrase that comes to my mind is, I wasted the best years of my life, or my life was destroyed by this affair. Sexual behavior outside of God's way will cost you. And with that, we pause to remember Jesus always offers forgiveness. Sexual sin is not an unforgivable sin. We bring what we've done to the Lord. We confess. We ask for forgiveness. We trust and follow his lead back to obedience. This is not an unforgivable sin. And the passage then gives us 2 pieces of advice for how not to get trapped by your sex drive. The first, this is brilliant, might want to write this down, is avoid it. Just physically avoid the temptation. Keep yourself away. Verse 8, don't go near the door of her house. The easiest step to control in this is the first step. Avoid the first step. So you have to decide for yourself where your temptation lies, whether it's an image or a story or a moment, an encounter with someone, that clerk at the store who flirted in a way that was a little bit unexpected and a little bit enjoyable. You have to figure out what's the first step and be honest with yourself and use discernment if this is someone wise to be with romantically. The first step's the easiest step. And if you're dating somebody, I think the corollary of this is if you're dating someone or you're pursuing someone, one way to see if this is wise is to consider, is this drawing me closer to God? Are we drawing each other closer to Jesus in our worship of Jesus? Because wisdom leads us to God, folly leads us away from God. So that's a great little evaluation point. Can you pray together? Can you talk with each other about what God is teaching you? Do you encourage each other to be more obedient? Those are great questions. There's in the next chapter, the strange woman says to the man, I've just worshiped. Let's pray so we can commit adultery. It's like, okay, that's bad. Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you're afraid to let the Lord know who you're attracted to, or if you're afraid to talk with God about what you're pursuing, that's a warning flag. And the second piece of advice in this passage is to enjoy your spouse, enjoy your wife, enjoy sex with them. And the imagery in the text is clear enough that I don't need to elaborate on it. Just enjoy water from your own well. Let your wife be a fountain of blessing for you. Verse 18, may you always be captivated by her love. In marriage, there is a freedom to be sexual. Sexuality is to be enjoyed without guilt, without fear, without shame, without regret, without anger, without disgust. One of the lies the evil one likes to whisper to us is, God's not going to give you the really good stuff. And in that lie is, you have to go do this without him. Don't share this part of your life with God. He's going to, he's not going to let you do the real fun stuff. And this passage is saying, actually, the wife is the real fun stuff. And the strange woman is connected to folly. The wife is connected to wisdom. Like there's a sense of, this is how it was designed. This is the way it was supposed to go. God's blessing sits on this, and God is giving you the real good stuff. So pursue your wife, enjoy your spouse, have fun. So, chapter 5 of Proverbs is one of 4 warnings to a man, specifically to men, about getting in control of your sexual drive. And it's for the man who wants to walk with the Lord faithfully. Your sexuality is not automatically in line with God's ways. It has to be brought into step with discipleship. You cannot say, I've had no control over this, I don't know what to do. Wisdom's here to give you control. Let it guide your lips. Without wisdom, you don't stand a chance against the appeal, the attraction of that strange woman, the one who's left her husband and left her walk with the Lord. She will lead you away from the Lord. And Jesus is not going to support that relationship because the Lord has a claim on your body. And our spiritual life and our physical life are very connected. They're not disconnected. Honoring the Lord with your sexuality will help deepen your spirituality. And the passage gives warning about what happens when you pursue sexual behavior outside of God's ways. Like we need to talk about it because it's in the news every day. Remember, Jesus always offers forgiveness. And the passage gives 2 pieces of advice for how to not get trapped by your sex drive. First is just physically avoid temptation. If the relationship is drawing you away from the Lord, that's a bad sign. The first step is the easiest step to control. And the second piece of advice is enjoy your wife. We can talk, we can share this part of our life with Jesus. You will not lose by honoring the Lord on this subject. So what catches your attention in this text? What catches your attention in this material?
As we were talking, and as we've been talking about this all week, I have been struck by how different the experience of this and growing up with the idea of sexuality and everything that comes with it is so different in this book than from what I experienced as a female human growing up. And it struck me this morning that for me, when I was figuring things out as I continue to do, but when I was first starting to figure things out, how the strange woman was a person. I had a friend who, for me, would constantly nudge. Nudge the boundary, make the boundary slightly further and slightly further and slightly further. And I was thinking this morning about how it felt like a shoe stretcher, where you just do that little turn, little turn, little turn, little turn, until you get to a whole different size. And the only way to get back is to cut that shoe apart and restitch it. And that experience of cutting that shoe apart and restitching it for me happened when I was about 13, 14. And it was awful. It was a terrible time. And that experience of this person just suggesting different things that I knew was okay, and just how I slowly incorporated that into this is just how the world works. This is how things work. How gradual and how innocent seeming it felt, until suddenly the world fell apart and everything was bad and awful and everything was on fire. And one of the ways that this can happen is that just very gradual. And I really appreciated that don't go to her door, that if you know this person is going to be bad for you, don't do it, don't. But it's sometimes really hard to know which door to avoid. I would encourage people that even if you've gone to that door, if you suddenly have that realization of, oh no, I went to the wrong door, that the pain that comes next is okay. That's to be expected, because you can't go back without being recut.
I won't be long, but I'll say one thing. Years ago, I read in a book, and I have no recollection of what book, but the thought stayed with me. And there was a couple that was tempted to move further in this relationship beyond what God would want. And at the last moment, the woman said to the man, "God can see us now, you know." And that I always thought that was a good thought. God sees what we do, all of us, all the time. And so sexuality also should be viewed within those boundaries. God
spoke
sees
to me
us.
really deeply.
Now what?
I guess here's the call to us guys. Stay in love with the one you fell in love with and you are devoted to. The whole chapter screams this is not an automatic thing, that this does not come easy. It takes wisdom and action, and there will be distractions. Stay in control. It's not automatic. You need to work on it. So work on staying in love with the one that you fell in love with. And before you interact with someone who makes you feel weird.
All thumbs in the thinking.
Yeah, all thumbs in the thinking. Makes you feel weird. Remember who you brought to the dance.
Yep. There was a book out there by a psychologist, not a Christian psychologist, talking about the cost of divorce, the cost of separation, just from a clinical scientific point of view. And I can't remember the name of the book, but she said when she was in school, they were taught that all options are equally valid. Whether you divorce, whether you separate, whether you reconcile, whether you just live apart, they're all equally valid. And she said, actually, the research shows that the best path is reconciliation, and the cost of a divorce 20 years later, most people are still suffering from it. It was just this neat sense of these aren't equal. I mean, you can decide for yourself what you want, but the price tag is. Well, this from 20 years later, you still have anger, you still are broke, you still have regret, you have trust issues. The right path really is what God put in front of us.
Thanks, Curtis. This is a great topic. It's the topic that Christina and I have talked about a lot together. And what caught my eye today was that verse 2. I'll start at verse 1. "My son, pay attention to my wisdom. Listen carefully to my wise counsel. then you will show discernment, and your lips will express what you've learned.
Phrase.
And so that's what a beautiful phrase. Like you talk about what you have actually learned from the wisdom. And if you take a look at Solomon's life, he experimented with all of it, and you see how it turned out. And so we can learn from that. We don't have to repeat the experiment. We can trust that he did it well. And just to share a little bit personally and just some thoughts. Back at the soundboard there, we have dials which go up and down, and they control the volumes of different mics. In relationships, there's different dials as well. There's an emotional one, there's a mental one, there's a spiritual one, and there's a physical one. And when you are looking to marry someone, and my understanding of how God designed things to work would be with the family as the basic unit, with the marriage starting off. That'd be my understanding of what God intends. And when you're getting to know someone, if any of those four dials are all meant to move up kind of equally and to culminate together in marriage. And if you have any one of those dials which is moving way further ahead. So for example, before I married Christine, I was dating another woman, and I went through cancer while I was dating her, and her mom had been through cancer. And so for me, she's the one who shaved my head bald. There was an emotional attachment because of her acceptance of me while I was going through chemotherapy, through cancer. And that was very important to me. And we dated for 13 months in total. But that emotional dial was way ahead of the rest. So when it came time to realize, oh, she's not the one for me to marriage, it was hard to break up because that emotional bond was stronger than the rest. So if you're in a relationship with someone and any one of those, so in a marriage, you want to be able to talk about things. You want to share what you believe, that spiritual dial. You want to be emotionally intimate, and you want to be physically intimate. But if you happen to undo your zipper before you get married, all of a sudden that physical dial gets cranked all the way up, and it feels pretty good. So now when you have a problem and you really need to be talking about it, well, you go back to that physical dial, and you think it solves some things, but it actually doesn't. So those four dials need to be moved up kind of together. And if you find in your relationship with someone that those four dials aren't moving together, that should be a warning flag. Oh, is this actually what I want? Is this actually what God's intended for me? So I find that helpful to think of those different dials, because in marriage, all four are meant to be together, and they're all meant to be high. And maybe you're married now, and one of those dials isn't working so well, and you may want to just talk to God about that. So some things that I've learned that I find helpful.
It's interesting to hear you say that this section of Proverbs is essentially written to guys. That's nice to hear, actually, that was either it just is the fact, or maybe it was even deliberately aimed that way, because I remember even a teenager reading this and being like, blame for everything here. Like, what's with this? This woman, she's just causing all these problems, and the guy, poor guy.
No, that's actually a really good
forget
point.
That. Like,
Because
I don't believe it. I
If
don't.
you read it as it's a big slam against the women, about the woman, no, it's to the guy. Yeah.
Right. And maybe the fact that it's such an extreme example makes it obvious. It's like, even with this extreme thing going on and this woman going, hey, actually, let's, like, actively provoking your response. She's actively targeting you. You still are responsible for your stuff, and you're responsible for your decisions. And maybe that's why such the extreme example, and it makes sense, because obviously this is an extreme example compared to the whole rest of life, whether you're married, whether you're single, whether you're a widower, like whatever your situation sex-wise is, whether you got something available or not in a legitimate way, there's a lot of situations, and this is one extreme one. And so it's maybe that's the conversation about, you are responsible, and it's important, and it matters. Like, those I get. Having been a sex educator adjacent for like more than a decade working in John's school, I'm just going to tell you, several times a year for more than a decade, I sat in a room with a bunch of guys who basically looked me in the face and could say something like, I don't know what happened, or I have no idea how I got there, or this is my right, or I can't live without it. Like all the things that they would say. I didn't do this face when I was in front of them, just so you know. It's just like you guys are full of stuff that's not helping you. All that hot air. All that hot air. Yeah, you're thinking with your little head. Anyway, so yeah, the thing, I think a lot of masculine culture, and I'm not going to say just North America, I think it's been for the rest of the history of the world, where guys, maybe starting when they're young teens, start to educate even each other that they can't live without sex, that they can't stop themselves, that they can't help themselves, that they're too much for themselves, they can't stop. Like all this stuff is just it's just not true. I'm just going to tell you, it's not actually the truth. It's not true. You can. And this is what this part of Proverbs is about, is the fact that not only is it your responsibility with wisdom to learn how to manage in a reasonable, respectful, honorable way that part of your life, because like it says here, it can really have effects on you, or on other people. And it's funny because I feel like our culture is kind of trying to normalize in a way whatever you want is fine. And I mean, that's been going on since the 70s, clearly. But like right now, you can be the president and do whatever you want and go, look over there. Like that's what you can do. Apparently that's the new strategy is look over there. Didn't work for Bill Clinton because he got nailed to the wall. So now it's working. But anyway, the fact is it's still a thing that we talk about because it's still a thing. It's still a thing. It's still not okay. And so maybe it's good that we're talking about this because since I was a young teenager, I'm like, I'm not okay with the women, with the girls getting blamed for the guys' lack of self-control. I don't believe it for 1/4 of a second. So there's an interesting conversation to be having in a church. I think it's awesome.
It's in the Bible, and it's a lot in the Bible. And if you talk with people, like I remember being in seminary and men from other cultures would come to study, and they would talk about how sexually saturated the West was. He's like, it's everywhere. It's in your advertising. It's on TV. It's in billboards. You're like, how do you do this? So we are a sexually saturated, and it's a God, right? It's you must worship this. You must have this. And it's like, out of, yeah, it's all out of proportion. Yeah. It's going so well for people in the media right now. Thanks, guys. This was a good conversation. Let me offer a prayer. Jesus, it is important that we learn how to honor you with our body. And it is a journey. And for men, it is a thing that is so very important to not ignore. Lord, continue to teach us that this would be a safe topic and this would be a topic that we all help each other improve on. To your glory and to not just to your glory, but that we would be the people you want us to be on earth and therefore bring freedom and hope and help to the world. Yeah. Thank you. Amen.
Thank you for listening to our podcast today. New Life Ministries is located in Winnipeg, Manitoba. You are invited to join our service in person or over Zoom. Please use the Contact Us link to send an email to the church office and request the address or Zoom link. If you would like to use these podcasts as part of your home church or local church gathering, you are free to do so. We do request that you let us know. If there is any other way that we can help you in your ministry, please send us an email.